Because of the strange miracle that happened in our town square, many people called me the miracle child. It is still so vivid even now, as if it happened yesterday. I was 12 years old when everything changed, but I did not know it that morning. The sun rose like it always did, slow and warm, touching the rooftops and the dusty road that led to the open field. People had gathered early, filling the space with whispers, prayers, and the sound of sandals on the ground. My father lay on the platform, still and silent, his chest barely moving. I stood below, small among many adults, feeling fear and hope fighting inside my heart. As I looked at my father, memories rushed through me like a river. I remembered his strong voice, how he used to lead prayers, how he once carried me on his shoulders so I could see over the crowd. Now his eyes were closed and his face looked pale. My hands shook, but something inside me felt steady, like a quiet voice reminding me I was not alone. I remembered the dreams I had seen many times, the gentle presence that always came with peace, the way I was shown to trust and obey even when I did not understand. I took a step forward, then another. Each step felt heavy, like the ground was testing my courage. People noticed me and began to murmur, but I did not stop. I climbed the platform slowly and stood beside my father. My heart beat fast, but I felt a calm settle over me. I lifted one hand toward the sky, just as I had been shown before, and in that moment, the noise around me faded, and all I could feel was a deep sense that I had to do what I believed was right. As my hand stayed lifted, the crowd reacted all at once. I heard sharp breaths, confused voices, and fearful questions spreading like fire. Some people shouted for me to stop, others asked who allowed a child to stand there. I could feel their eyes on my back, heavy and burning, but my feet would not move. It was as if something stronger than fear held me in place. Then something strange happened. The noise began to fade, not because people chose to be quiet, but because a deep stillness settled over us. It felt like the air itself had changed. Even the wind seemed to pause. The shouting stopped, and the whispers died away. I could hear my own breathing clearly, slow and steady, even though my heart was racing inside my chest. In that silence, I understood that this moment was not about me being brave or special. It was about obedience. I felt a strong knowing in my heart that I was standing where I was meant to stand. I looked down at my father again, and love filled me, pushing out my fear. I knew I had to continue, no matter what people thought or said. I stood there longer than I expected, my hand still raised, my other hand hanging by my side. My thoughts were not many, but they were clear. I knew I was young, and I knew the rules of my people, the rules that said a boy like me should not speak, should not act, should not draw attention. Yet, inside me, something greater than rules was guiding my steps. I felt a strong pull in my heart, urging me not to remain silent. Slowly, I lowered my raised hand and placed my other hand gently on my father's chest. His body felt warm but weak. I could feel how still he was, and that made my throat tighten. For a moment, fear tried to rise again. I wondered what would happen if nothing changed, if people laughed at me or worse. But the peace inside me returned, stronger than before, reminding me that faith does not wait for proof. I opened my mouth, and words began to come out, words I had carried quietly for a long time. My voice shook at first, barely louder than a whisper. I spoke with respect and honesty, calling on the name I had come to know in secret. As I continued, my voice grew steadier. I was no longer speaking to the crowd or thinking about their faces. I was focused only on the one who had visited me in dreams and guided my heart from my childhood. As I prayed, I felt a deep sense of connection, as if heaven was closer than the sky above us. I asked for healing, not to prove anything about myself, but so that the people standing there would know that life and hope were still possible. My words were simple, like the words of a child, but they were full of trust. When I finished, I did not pull my hand away. I stayed there, believing that obedience, even from a young heart, truly matters. Right after my prayer ended, something shifted around us. It was not loud or frightening, but it was impossible to ignore. I felt the air change against my skin, like a gentle breath passing through the open field. It moved across the platform and into the crowd, soft yet strong, as if it carried purpose. My clothes stirred slightly, and I knew this was not an ordinary wind. People began to react without understanding why. Some women covered their mouths as tears filled their eyes. A few men stepped back, looking around in confusion, as if searching for the source of what they felt. No one spoke, but emotions poured out in quiet ways. I could sense fear, wonder, and hope all mixed together. The stillness returned, deeper than before, and it felt heavy with meaning. I kept my hand on my father's chest, afraid to move, afraid to interrupt whatever was happening. Inside my heart, I felt a strong reassurance, like a reminder that I was not alone on that platform. I remembered the times in my dreams when I was shown that obedience sometimes brings moments that cannot be explained by words. In that moment, I understood that faith often works quietly before it works openly. As I stood there, I noticed something else. The presence I felt was not pushing or forcing anything. It was gentle, patient, and full of care. It let me know that what was happening was guided by love, not power. I felt calm, even though I was surrounded by many adults watching closely. For the first time, I realized that true strength does not shout, and true faith does not rush. I was still standing there when I felt something beneath my palm. At first, I thought it was my imagination, because hope can make the heart play tricks. I stayed very still and paid attention. Then I felt it again, a faint movement, gentle but real. My breath caught in my chest and my eyes widened, but I said nothing. I did not want to break the moment or draw attention too quickly. My father's chest began to rise more clearly, slow but steady. His face, which had looked pale and distant, seemed to relax. The tightness around his mouth softened, and a small sound escaped his lips, like a deep breath after a long sleep. I felt tears fill my eyes, not from fear this time, but from relief and awe. I knew this was not something I could cause or control. I was only a witness. Behind me, the crowd began to stir again, but differently than before. The confusion turned into quiet amazement. Some people leaned forward, others covered their faces, and a few fell to their knees without being told. I kept my hand where it was, my heart full and trembling, knowing that obedience had opened a door for something greater than all of us. As my father breathed more freely, his eyelids began to move. It was slow, like someone waking from a deep and heavy sleep. I leaned closer, watching carefully, afraid to miss even the smallest sign. When his eyes finally opened, they did not rush or widen. They opened gently, adjusting to the light and the faces around him. In that moment, I felt my knees weaken, and I had to stand firm to keep from falling. His eyes met mine, and I saw recognition there. He did not speak yet, but his gaze told me he knew I was beside him. Tears rolled down my face freely now, and I did not try to hide them. I felt a deep joy mixed with humility. I knew that what was happening was not because I was brave or special, but because obedience had allowed something holy to touch our lives. The crowd reacted again, this time with sounds that could not be held back. Soft cries, prayers, and gasps filled the air. Some people raised their hands, others pressed their palms together tightly. No one mocked or shouted anymore. Fear had given way to wonder. Even those who had doubted before now stood silent, watching closely. My father tried to move, and I gently supported him. Strength was returning to his body little by little. I felt a deep gratitude fill my heart, not only for his healing, but for the reminder that faith is alive and active. In that moment, I understood that belief is not just something spoken in secret, but something lived out with courage, even when the world is watching. As my father slowly sat up, the crowd changed completely. The same people who had questioned me now watched with wide eyes and open hearts. No one argued. No one tried to explain it away. What they were seeing was clear and close, happening right in front of them. The platform that once felt heavy with fear now felt filled with hope. I could hear people praying softly, each in their own way. Some sounded confused, others thankful, and some deeply moved. A few elders stepped closer, not to stop anything, but to see better. Their faces showed that they were thinking hard, realizing that something beyond their understanding had taken place. The moment felt serious and gentle at the same time. I stayed beside my father, supporting him as he gained strength. Inside me, I felt both small and deeply grateful. I understood that faith can shake even the strongest doubts when it is lived out sincerely. That day, I learned that truth does not need to fight loudly. Sometimes, it simply stands still and lets light do the work. After a few moments, the crowd grew quieter. The initial shock had passed, and a softer, almost reverent energy took over. I could sense the minds of the people turning, the hearts of many opening, even if they would never say it aloud. It was as if they were realizing that some things are bigger than what they can see or touch. I felt it too, deep in my chest, a knowledge that Jesus had been with me the whole time. I heard, or perhaps felt, a gentle guidance in my heart. He let me know that obedience, even from a small child, can become a channel for miracles. I could not see him, but I understood his presence. It was like warmth moving through my body, a steady reassurance that what I had done was right. My heart swelled with peace, and fear left completely, replaced by courage I had never known before. My father looked at me, still breathing strongly, and nodded faintly. I could see gratitude and love in his eyes. He did not need to speak, and I did not need to explain. We both knew what had happened. Around us, people whispered to each other, sharing their disbelief and awe, but I stayed focused on what mattered most, the quiet, powerful truth of obedience, prayer, and faith. Even now, I understood something very important. Miracles do not come from power or knowledge alone, but from trusting, listening, and doing what you know is right. I felt the need to hold on to that lesson forever, knowing that this day would stay in my heart, shaping how I lived, prayed, and believed from now on. As the moment slowly settled, people began to step back, giving my father space. The field did not feel the same anymore. It was as if something unseen had passed through and left a mark on every heart present. I helped my father stand, and though he was weak, he was steady. Each breath he took felt like a quiet victory, not just for him, but for everyone who had witnessed what happened. Inside me, a deep lesson was forming. I realized that faith is not always loud or public. For many years, mine had lived quietly inside my heart, growing through dreams, prayers, and moments of obedience no one else could see. That day showed me that when the time comes, even hidden faith can step into the light. I understood that God prepares the heart long before He uses the hands. I also learned that being young does not mean being ignored by heaven. I was only 12, yet I had been trusted with a moment that would change many lives. This did not make me proud. Instead, it made me careful. I knew that faith is something to carry with humility, not as a reason to boast, but as a responsibility to love, forgive, and remain faithful. As we left the platform together, I felt a quiet promise settle in my heart. I knew my journey with God was only beginning. I understood that there would be challenges, questions, and moments of fear ahead. But I also knew that obedience, prayer, and trust would always lead me forward, even when the path was unclear. After my father was steady on his feet, I noticed the people around us. Their faces had changed. Some looked astonished, others thoughtful, and a few had tears rolling down their cheeks. I realized that what happened was not only about my father's healing, it was about hearts waking up. Many had been carrying doubt, fear, or sorrow, and now something gentle had touched them. I saw women holding their children tightly, whispering prayers quietly. Men shifted, lowering their hands, some crossing their arms, others bowing their heads. I felt the weight of their attention, but it no longer made me nervous. Instead, I felt a connection to each of them, like the faith that moved through me was reaching them too. It was strange, yet beautiful, to understand that even a child's action could ripple outward and inspire courage in others. I felt a whisper in my heart again. He revealed to me that true faith is contagious, not because we push it on others, but because when we obey and love, people see the difference. Hearts open not when we force them, but when they witness patience, humility, and courage. I understood that the smallest act of obedience could become a doorway for many to glimpse the love of God. That day, I realized I was no longer the same boy who had hesitated in secret. Something had shifted inside me. I knew that my life, my words, and my actions would now carry weight, not because of pride, but because of responsibility. I felt determined to live in a way that reflected obedience, faith, and love, knowing that every small act can matter far more than we imagine. Even after the crowd began to calm, I still felt it, the presence that had guided me from the start. It was not like anything I had experienced before. It was gentle, patient, and full of warmth, like a hand resting on my shoulder that I could not see but could feel deeply. It let me know that I was not alone, that every step I had taken, every prayer I had whispered in secret, had been noticed. As I helped my father walk slowly, the awareness of that presence stayed with me. He told me, without words, that this moment was bigger than myself, that the courage I had shown, the willingness to obey, was what opened the way for healing. I realized that the power did not belong to me, but to the one who had been guiding my dreams and my heart since I was small. Looking at the crowd, I could feel hearts stirring quietly. Some people were speaking softly to each other, sharing their astonishment, but I knew many more were thinking deeply, feeling something they could not fully explain. I felt a responsibility settle in me, like a seed being planted. If I wanted to follow this path, I had to remain faithful, obedient, and humble, always listening for guidance and ready to act. The presence stayed with me even when the people began to leave. I felt strengthened, encouraged, and more aware than ever that life with God is a journey that asks for courage, patience, and trust. I understood then that miracles are not only about the extraordinary, they are about the obedience and faith that allow the ordinary to become extraordinary. When it was time to leave the platform, I helped my father step down carefully. The ground felt different under my feet, as if the earth itself had witnessed something sacred. People moved aside without being asked, creating a path for us. No one tried to stop us or question us anymore. Their silence was full of respect and deep thought. As we walked, my father leaned on me slightly. I could feel his weight, real and living, and it filled me with gratitude. My heart kept replaying everything that had happened, not as noise or excitement, but as a calm understanding. I knew that this day would be remembered, not because of drama, but because truth had quietly revealed itself. Inside me, I felt guidance again. He let me know that moments like this are not meant to make us famous or proud. They are meant to shape our hearts and teach us how to walk rightly. I understood that obedience does not end after one miracle. It continues in daily choices, in how we treat others, and in how we remain faithful when no one is watching. When we reached a quiet place away from the crowd, I paused and looked back once more. I saw people still standing, still thinking, still changed in small but important ways. I took a deep breath and knew that my journey was just beginning. What had started on that platform would continue in my life, step by step, guided by faith and obedience. Later that day, when everything had grown quiet, I sat alone and thought about all that had happened. The sounds of the crowd were gone, but the meaning of the moment stayed with me. I realized that obedience is not a single act done once. It is a calling that continues, asking for faith again and again. My heart felt full, but also serious, because I knew I could not return to living carelessly. I felt a clear understanding settle inside me. He let me know that following God is a journey that requires discipline and love. It means choosing truth even when it is difficult, choosing kindness when anger feels easier, and choosing prayer when fear tries to take over. I understood that miracles may not happen every day, but faith must be practiced every day. I also realized that belief is not meant to separate us from others, but to teach us how to love them better. I thought about the faces in the crowd, their tears, their silence, and their confusion. I knew that many of them were searching, just like I had been. This made me want to live in a way that points people to hope, not by force, but by example. As I looked toward the future, I felt encouraged and guided. I knew there would be moments when my faith would be tested, when prayer would feel hard, and when obedience would require courage. But I also knew that God walks closely with those who seek Him sincerely. From that day on, I made a quiet promise to take my Christian journey seriously, to love others deeply, to pray faithfully, and to study God's Word so my life would remain rooted in truth and love.